pandemic, we've been reaching out and doing a number of interviews during the pandemics to understand how it's affecting people at the time. People have different. If you let 5 or 10 years go by and then you ask someone a question, it's different than you ask them when they're right in the middle of things, right? And so there's a certain advantage to doing an interview right in the middle of things, and there's a certain advantage to doing an interview 5 or 10 years later. And the other thing that we're really interested in chronicling is some of the amazing philanthropy that the church has been involved in, that you two have been involved in, and of course, lives like yours, we could probably sit here and talk for 2 weeks, right? And really go into depth of all sorts of things. And today we'll mostly focus on those couple of topics. I'll ask you some background questions, and then I'd be interested in learning about the philanthropy you've been involved with, and then some thoughts on your experience during the current pandemic. Gave the children the responsibility to fulfill their philanthropic dreams. What was the charge that they gave you?
Well, I think there was some preparation for it before both of my parents died, and I'm living that myself as a parent, trying to figure out what I do with my own children. And my own experience, because it's unique and you don't have anywhere to go compare it. And frankly, in today's world, you don't have a class that teaches you how to give. You have classes for saving and for investing and for growing money, but nowhere does anybody teach you how to give.
Obviously, your relationship with the gospel and with the church is very meaningful to you, and your philanthropy is so focused on these things as well. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about your spiritual life and about how that relates to the things we're talking about.
Well, I do feel like I was taught in my home. I had good parents, and especially, a mother who was always one who tried to do the right things for the right reason. And even in my teenage years, the importance of following the commandments is always important to me. I always knew my mother was praying. I always knew it was important to be doing. We live in times that we've seen a lot of doubting and difficulty in another generation. But the things that were important growing up to me were marriage and family. That future. Losing my husband at an early, he was 51, but my youngest child was 4 years old, and my oldest was just graduating from high school. But I was so blessed and recognized that the Lord was so aware of me. He knew that I could do this, and that there was a greater work going on and more purposes and things that I would, understand at another point. But, I was never disenchanted with religion because I'd lost my husband. I don't know how to do this, and that makes me upset, but it's.
Yeah. How has it affected you as an individual?
As a single older sister, I live in the red zone. My zone doesn't go to yellow or orange or green. It's always red because I'm in stage 4 with lung cancer. And if I get ill, it's a bigger concern.
Right.
And it's isolation.
I just reached out to my kids and I said, hey, do any of you guys have any ideas for what we could do to serve someone? and Jonathan found a family that needed their kitchen painted. So we went and painted their kitchen. They, of course, fixed breakfast for us. That was a much greater blessing than what we gave them. But we often say, okay, if things are starting to get a little bit hard, we say it's time to go paint a kitchen, meaning it's time to set our lives aside and focus on other people.
Mm-hmm. So Rob, you had mentioned the priesthood blessing, then the participation in building these schools. What else led you down this philanthropic path?
Well, we've been very blessed financially through our participation at Wheeler. And I think probably as much as anything is I would attribute it, I think, to prodding by the Holy Ghost, saying this money was not given to you for your use. It was given to help others. And, and that's a fairly constant prod that what are you doing to help someone? Again, this money isn't yours. It's to help the world, help people in the world live their lives. And our goal is to die broke, is that we give away our last dollar and then we ride off into the sunset. But
well, Rob and Lisa, this has been a blessing for me to get to talk with you today. And I guess I should ask if you have any final thoughts or any final comments.
Well, we typed up a lot of things, but I can't read them because I have my contacts in. That's probably a blessing for you. Oh, I was just going to say one other thing is that when we sometimes when we do our emergency prepared meetings on Zoom, we ask the question, what has become your gold? Not your goal, not GOAL, but your GOLD, meaning the commodity that you're searching for. Or what did you not have? And it's really fun to hear what people need, and what they wish they could get, but they can't get it. And ours has been disinfectant wipes.
Yeah.
And so Rob has learned how to make them. And so on Saturday, that's his job. He makes and he's gotten really good at it.
Yeah. What's been your personal experience during these months, staying at home, not traveling? What's that been like?
I have learned about Zoom. I had never heard of Zoom in February. Now I'm on Zoom every day, and I'm on Zoom with you, and it's pretty darn good, quite frankly. I enjoy it, and I think a lot of people are figuring out that we can work from home and be productive, and as long as we've got some outside activities going on. I like to bicycle. And so I just take at least an hour and a half a day, and I go outside and I ride for 20 miles or so, and then come back and I feel happy. Business, the original business from which everything else has sprung was called Hot Shops. And he started in 1927. He opened up the day Lindbergh flew across the Atlantic, May 20th, 1927. And he had rented a half of a bakery at 14th and Park Road in Washington, D.C. It was about 9 feet wide and about 20 feet long. And he put a counter in there and a big root beer barrel on the counter and put a carbonator and a lot of ice and cooling equipment in there. And he was selling A&W root beer. And that was all he sold, 5-nickel root beer. And it was, I would say, fairly successful. He was doing maybe $50 a day in sales. 1,000 mugs of root beer,
Dick, and you're welcome to make any other final statements that you want to make. But you touched on it earlier, and of course, working at the church history department, one of the things that we're especially interested in is the relationship between religion and the gospel and what people are doing. And you touched on it before about how the church teaches philanthropy in a way by tithing and by tax offerings and other things that we do. I wonder if you would reflect for just a minute on how the gospel has shaped what you do with philanthropy.
Well, when I was on the board of the Polynesian Cultural Center, and I was the chairman for a few years as well, I had a lot of direct dealings with the presiding bishopric. And that was H. David Burton at the time.
Okay.
And I found out the church really is a business when it comes to running the various departments of the church. They pay very close attention to what everybody's doing. They have budgets for every department, and they expect those budgets to be obeyed and everybody to do what's expected of them. And they don't hesitate to tell you if you're not doing what's expected of you. And I mean, that's what it should be.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, the Lord is a businessman as well as a religionist. You know, he wants to get things done. And I mean, there are spiritual things we got to get done, and there are business things we got to get done. The church separates them. You know, the presiding bishopric is kind of the CEO of the church, and he's paying close attention to everything that's going on out there. And I think that's great. It gives me great reassurance to know that we have inspired people really paying attention to the nuts and bolts of running the church and paying for all the expenses of the church. And you think of how many chapels get built, and now how many temples are being built.
Yeah.
The expenses of that, and then we see an article about this $100 billion of investments the church has. Well, how about that? Isn't that great? My gosh! And now with the virus coming upon us, I mean, how is it the church is thinking ahead? You know, the church has been in financial difficulty before. And they decided they're not going to do that again. And I am just extremely impressed with how the church manages its finances and its religion. And, you know, we are blessed to be living in these times. And, you know, the church is the Church of Jesus Christ. And we all know that. Not everybody knows that. But enough of us know it that we can spread the word. And I think that's what the Lord wants us to do. I mean, we conduct our affairs so that we can be good examples to everybody. And people look at us, they know we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ. And they're going to say, hey, well, this isn't such a bad operation. Guys like this can be very active members in this. And so I think, you know, our job is to be great examples to our friends, to our business associates, and to our fellow members. And the best thing we can do is, you know, just get in and do what they ask us to do. You know, I've never turned down a calling in church. And hopefully at this age, I won't get too many more.